Good morning, beautiful souls. I trust you're well and I trust you're living your best life. So on today's podcast, I've got a beautiful soul, a friend, and somebody that I met in 2013. I was back there. It's an absolute pleasure to have Adam Barralet on the podcast today. So for you guys who are listening to the podcast, if you wanted to watch the interview on YouTube, hop over onto YouTube because we've got the video recording at the moment. Otherwise, you can just listen on the podcast. So Adam, it's an absolute pleasure to have you here this morning. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for the invitation and looking forward to our conversation.
Likewise. So as I mentioned, we kind of met each other in 2013 and we were working in the same retail shop at that time, in the same retail industry, and our lives have kind of gone apart, and then from time to time we would kind of run into each other. And then when I started the Sacred Living Academy, one of my programs that I run in there, Sacred Beginnings, I asked you to come and be one of my experts on crystals. And after you showed up beautifully, and I must say that the feedback from the students were that they really enjoyed your presentation, your knowledge, your energy that you bring. So yeah, that was amazing. And shortly after that, I was like, look, I've got to have you on the podcast so we can have a chat. And I think your knowledge in what it is that you do, and we'll kind of reveal it. I've kind of said what it is, but your knowledge and the energy that you bring to everything that you do, because I have you on Facebook and Instagram and all the places I can see you, you are really passionate about what you do. So it speaks in everything that you do. So I just wanted to kind of drop that in there. So before we dive into all the spiritual stuff, I wanted to actually just begin by asking you and going, tell us a little bit more about who Adam was growing up. Where did you come from? What was your life like? And kind of just give us a picture of who you were before you kind of found the spiritual path that you're on at the moment.
Of course, thank you. Yeah, so I grew up in the bushland hills of Perth, Western Australia. So for those that are outside of Australia or your Australian geography isn't too good, I'm in one of the most isolated cities in the world. I'm about half an hour drive from the city, but surrounded by bush. So it's not unusual for me to see kangaroos every day, surrounded by bird life and that type of thing. And that's where I grew up. And it wasn't until I was about probably in those teenage years that I really started to appreciate where I lived. Teenage years are tricky for most of us. And for me, whereas other kids would lock themselves maybe in their bedroom and play loud music, I would go sit outside. I'd either sit under, I remember this little bush tree kind of thing that I would sit under in my backyard, and I'd look at the stars, and that's where I'd kind of find some solace and maybe some certainty in trying to work my way out on what on earth is happening in this life. It was around 17, after my mother and father separated. My mum found this little crystal shop, and she bought herself a Medicine Woman CD and an Enya CD, and I think a rose quartz. And one day I followed her in there and I bought myself my first crystal, which was a little amethyst. And when I bought that, they gave you a sheet of A4 paper that told you all the different properties of all the different crystals. And I read through this with fascination and was like, I've got to get that one. I've got to get that one. So the next week I was back in there, bought another crystal and another crystal and another crystal. To the point now where, probably in my collection, there is about 400 different crystals. Now, wow. As I was growing up for many, many years, I was kind of playing around with crystals and noticing different kind of cool things happening. But I was living that kind of everyday life. I finished high school. I went to university, started a degree in psychology, and then realized you had to be there for about 8 years before you could actually help people, and dropped out of that and did massage. Then worked for large corporations, National Australia Bank, McDonald's, Boost Juice, Fitness First, Flight Centre, all these big kind of corporate jobs, trying to work my way up ladders and different things like that. Like any small city, eventually people get a little bit bored because they're young and they're like, this is boring. So I'm like, I want to go somewhere bigger. So I actually went and moved to Melbourne, and then that wasn't big enough for me. And I met a partner and moved to Toronto. and then that wasn't big enough for me, and went to New York City. And then while living in New York City, I actually realized, hold on, there's no place like home, and came back to Perth. And that's when probably our paths first crossed, because my first job then was working in a crystal shop and a new age shop. And that was where I'd been using crystals that'd been in my life, just like brushing our teeth is. It's just it was part of my life. But this was the first time I realized there were so many people that love crystals but didn't know what to do with them. So while I was working at that crystal shop, I was invited to write a crystal book by a new publishing company. People asked me to come and teach about crystals, and that's kind of where my own personal spirituality, that was just the thing I did, became more of a teaching role, probably about just over 10 years ago.
Yeah, it's amazing. I'm listening to you, and I had a conversation the other day with somebody as well, and it's interesting how for quite a few of us in this space, the holistic health and stuff like that, we wanted to step into the psychology role, into helping people, because back then it was kind of, if you want to help people, it was psychology, right? There wasn't all these other modalities and coaches and mentors and healers and stuff like that. And that kind of maybe gives our age away a little bit, but we've it's interesting that we've touched on that, and it's kind of, there's just this pull towards helping people, right? And
Very
how
much so.
your journey then took you, and then your journey took you, like, it introduced you to your magic, it introduced you to this thing, the crystal, that was going to then become the way that you help people, or one of the world, essentially, to then come all the way back home. Your soul was calling you back home, back into nature. So yeah, that's interesting. I love that. You were talking about, when you found your crystal, your first crystal, your amethyst, and you found the spreadsheet of kind of the information of the crystals. Have you found that the information that you received back then, have you found that you have created deeper connections with it? Is it kind of still the same way of connecting with crystals back then as it is now, or has there been kind of a shift or change in the way that you're connecting with crystals now, if that makes sense?
Yeah,
Is it
it
still
does.
the same, like the information that they gave you back then, what you are giving out now, is it still the same, or has it changed a bit?
I think with everything, I guess, to use another analogy, you can read in a book what one of the star signs' characteristics are, but then you can live with that star sign and you're like, oh, well, there's a whole complexity beyond just a small description in that way. So I guess when I teach about crystals now, I'm adding my personal flavor into it. I also like to take from different resources, especially historic resources, and how crystals have been used as well. But one thing I often say when I'm teaching about crystals is, I'm not right. I'm not telling you the way it is, because everyone has different experiences with crystals. And I hope that rather than being black and white, this is what a crystal must be used for, this is what most people find it good for. Give it a shot and let me know how you go. It's kind of been my approach more these days, rather than I have the definitive truth.
Yeah, I love that, Adam, because it literally boils down to the one thing, and it comes down to awareness and intuition. Or you've just found me. I am an expert in awareness and intuition. So everything that I teach comes through the filter of awareness and intuition. And what you were just saying is that we are not right. Like, we can give you tools, but you essentially have to run it through your own filters of awareness and intuition, because your journey, your path, your energy, your environment, everything is very different. And the way that you will use the information for yourself is a little bit different. It's not set in stone. And what you teaching people, I love that. I love the fact that that you're encouraging people to find out for themselves. Yeah, I love
Yeah,
that.
and different people obviously are going to have different energy interactions. A classic and well-known crystal is called fluorite, and fluorite grows in perfect little squares, and so it's really good for getting your life in order and getting yourself organized. Now, I am a rather organized person. I'm a bit of a time Nazi. I run my life by hour by hour. I know where I'm going to be and what I'm going to be doing and that type of thing. So I don't really need fluorite, and I don't know what all the fuss about fluorite is because it has nothing to give me in that way. Whereas other
Yep.
people love it and think it's absolutely stunning. So just like we all have different likes when it comes to genres of music or movies or something like that, the crystal interaction that you'll have will vary from person to person as well.
Yeah, it's very true. It's very true because I'm thinking of my own journey. Like crystals have kind of come in and out of my life. It's not one of the main tools that I use in my life. And it's the same with essential oils. I think the essential oil that I use the most is the lavender peppermint mix. And it's for mosquitoes.
Mm,
It's for mosquito bites. That's the only thing I have a few more in the house, but that's the extent of my touching on those things because that's just my own journey.
yeah.
So it's interesting that different people will be drawn to different tools at different times, right? And you were saying how, even though fluoride is a crystal and it is really helpful, like you've got no need for it because there's just your personality type is just very structured. So yeah, that's really interesting. And it's good for people to know this because I find, and I think that you would have found this in crystal stores as well, is when people come in for crystals, some people in the industry would kind of go, if you're looking for this type of, or if you're looking for love, you have to take a rose quartz. That's for love. Like you have to buy that one. But what I teach my students, and I was like, if you go into the crystal store and you're looking for love, I want you to tap into that energy and I want you to around or you can get to the heart stone. So, being open and connected to the inner voice and that intuition, then to guide you to the storm.
Yeah, there's a classic example that I remember when I did work in the crystal store. When it comes to that context of love, we had a regular customer, rather successful in her career, but was always getting into relationships with. She was a very A type and getting into relationships with other A type men, and then ended up clashing, and it wasn't working. And so she's like, right, I bought lots of crystals. We need to find the ultimate love crystal for me. I need to find a man. And so I did. There's many, many different love crystals. Normally the ones that are of the different pink shades are things like kunzite and morganite and pink petalite and all these different ones that are really great for attracting a really powerful love into your life. And I was kind of showing her them, and she's like, nah, they're not really working for me. And then she found this blue crystal that's called Larimar. Now, if people haven't seen Larimar, it basically
Oh
has
yeah.
this oceanic, it looks like the Caribbean Ocean. It's a beautiful stone. And it's
I love Larimer.
very, very powerful. She's like, what about this one? I'm like, well, that's kind of more to do with, relaxation, allowing abundance into your life and flow and different things like that. It's not really an attracting a loved one. But, I wasn't going to argue with the customer. She's like, no, I am drawn to this one. I'm going to try this one. So she bought herself this beautiful pendant of Larimar. Now, she came back a few weeks later and she said, I've met someone. Now, the really interesting thing is, he's not like anyone I've ever dated before. He's not this real dominating. He's really quite gentle, but we're getting along really, really well in that way. And when you kind of backtrack and look at it, Larimar does, like the ocean, allows us just to kind of relax and go with the flow a bit more and not force things and be open to more forms of abundance. Then it was a perfect crystal for her in that way. So you can't just rely on a book or what someone tells you have to have. You've got to lean into that intuition as well.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I love that example. I've actually got chills. Like it's just beautiful. Yeah. And Larimar is definitely one of the stones that I have at home as well. Pendant, beautiful. I just love the colors. So, tell us a little bit about your book. Now, I know that you mentioned the other day that it's not readily available anymore, but tell us a little bit about how you came to write the crystal book, and just share a little bit about that. And please feel free to share, because you've got a lot of, I'm just looking at your website, and you've got a lot of beautiful, like, get guided meditation CDs for people to work with crystals. So please tell us a little bit about that, and kind of just let people know what is on the website crystal wise. And then I want to kind of dive into the other part of what you do as essential oils. So yeah, feel free to share.
Of course. So basically what I found as I was working in that crystal shop was people loved crystals. They loved to buy them, and then they'd take them home and they're not too sure what to do with them. So if you've got jewelry, obviously just wear it. And if you've got a piece, you stick it on a shelf somewhere. And, these have been taken out of Mother Earth. They're a gift from Mother Earth. And we don't want, if I gave you a Christmas present and you just whacked it on a shelf, I'd be a little bit upset by that. So I was like, how can I give people tools to actually start to work with them and see them actually bringing a benefit into their lives? So I also, my first thing before I actually wrote my book was I made 8 guided meditation CDs that each have 4 different meditations on each CD. They just take you through some of your favorite crystals. From there's a Larima one, there's a fluorite one, there's a red jasper one, there's all the kind of classic ones there. And they're about 20 minutes each, and it's giving you a little guided meditation while you hold that crystal in that way. Now, they're available on my website, as you said. They're also available for download on iTunes. And it's just giving people a way to relax at the end of the day, or whenever they get 20 minutes to themselves, to feel something from a crystal. Because a lot of people are like, I can't feel anything in that way. So that's what they're designed for. With the book, there's hundreds of crystal books out there. Why buy mine? Because what I found is so many crystal books say, this is the crystal of love. This is good for money. And then you're like, cool, I've got the crystal for money. Where's the money? Show me the money. What do I do? And so my, the subheading of my book, the book's called Crystal Connections. It's a guide on crystals and how to use them. And so that's what I've tried to put in there as much as possible, is put it here, try it here, mix it with this, combine it with this, do this little spell, say this chant, all different things. So you're actually interacting with them and doing something, and things are actually working out for you.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm pretty sure I do have a copy of your book. I've got a few bookshelves, and I know I've got books in boxes as well. I haven't packed it out yet. So, but yeah, so I love, like I said, I've known you for a few years, and I know that I learned from you in the crystal stores as well, and via other people, the knowledge that you've put out there. So, where can people grab your book from if they still want to get your book?
The only place that's available at the moment, I am working on, but this will be maybe a year or two away, a new version of it. But if you go to animaldreamingpublishing.com, I think there's a .au on there as well, you can get it there. That's the only place at the moment, unfortunately. There may be some rather expensive copies around on Amazon, but you can get it for the normal price there.
Beautiful. We'll put the link in the show notes for people to find that as well. So now, you don't just work with crystals. Like I've mentioned, you work with essential oils as well. So where did your journey with essential oils start?
Yeah, one part of my background story that I guess I forgot to share with you was I kind of skimmed over that I lived in North America. And when I lived in Toronto, I probably had the best job that wasn't actually a job while I was there. I was a volunteer at Toronto Zoo. Now, I believe Toronto Zoo to be one of the best zoos in the world. And they have a really great program where school kids of every year learn about animals, and then once a year they come, and I was one of the tour guides that would kind of show them the animals and tell them something more from what they'd been learning in their classroom. It was amazing. But because I'm so passionate about the conservation of animals, I couldn't understand why we wouldn't talk about animals being endangered until the later years. I'm like, we need to let everyone know about this, but for various reasons. And I asked my head instructor, my trainer, why is this? Why do we have to wait till year 6 before we start telling them about what they can do? And she said probably the most profound sentence for me in my life that changed the direction of my life. She said, people will only protect what they love. And if we don't teach the kids to love the animals first of all, and we just start telling them that there's only 400 of these tigers left and they're going to die, then they won't fall. There's no hope in that type of way. So
Yeah,
I guess
wow.
when it comes to crystals, when it comes to essential oils, when it comes to animal wisdom or angels or astrology or mythology, all the things that I love, my mission is to help people fall in love with them and realize their value so that when we are making choices in our daily lives, when we vote, when we decide what car to buy and things like that, we are looking after nature and have Mother Nature in respect, kind of in mind in that way. And so with essential oils, as I was buying crystals, that shop had essential oils, and I first of all just thought they were nice smelly things, and would have
Mhm.
them burning in my room in the good old tea light candle burners that we don't use anymore because it destroys the oils. And then I'd use them when I was a massage therapist when I did that as well. And then I had some really profound effects 10 years ago with my health. I used to be covered in eczema. So 10 years ago, you would have watched the Adam Barralet
Wow.
scratching show. I was constantly itchy. It looked like I was wearing red eyeshadow all the time, bright red above here. And I tried different things from
Wow.
doctors in Australia and North America. They'd give me steroid creams, you put it on, it goes away, but they say you can't use it every day, so you stop using it, it just comes back. So band-aiding it. But switching to essential oil-based products and natural products, not just essential oils, but looking at supplements and what I wash in and what I wash my clothes in, things like that, it went away. And I was like, there is a lot of
Mm.
people out there that are having a lot of health issues, and this could help as well. So I got excited about the physical benefits, but because of my spiritual inclination to anything from nature, the oils also, just as the crystals do, started speaking to me. And often when I'm maybe doing, like I did a tarot reading yesterday, different oils or crystals almost kind of push their way into my awareness because I have a message for someone.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I love that. I love how you, like, again, you're so passionate and it shows, and you're very knowledgeable. Like, I've seen people post about crystals, and I've seen people post about oils, and then I see the way that you post and the way you present and the way that you connect the oils and the crystals to angels and to the tarots and, like, just to life. And it is this beautiful connection. It's this beautiful dance of everything that's together. So I what I want to do is I want to ask you to if you could perhaps take one crystal and the oil that will accompany it, and then kind of just speak into it and just give it as, you just use it as an example for the listeners, to see how the crystal and the oil can be used together, and just this beautiful dance. Make up a scenario, I don't know, love, money, whatever, and then just, if you can please give us one crystal and one oil that we can kind of use together, just to bring awareness to how we can actually use them together. That would be amazing.
Of course, I think I'll share my favorite money making one or abundance one that for those that have maybe seen me talk about this before, I apologize. But for those that haven't, it is a very popular one and it has been a very effective one as well. So, why I
Yeah.
like to combine different things together is I always give the example of we're creating a romantic night at home for us and a loved one. Now, we wouldn't just put a red candle in the middle of the room and go, there's my romantic night. We'd bring in the candles, we'd bring in the music, we'd dim the lights, we'd bring some champagne, we'd, cook a nice meal, we'd dress a certain way. All this would create a romantic atmosphere or vibration or energy. So by combining crystals and essential oils and other things as well, you can bring that in as well. So the one that I like to teach is my classic abundance one. You need a citrine crystal, which is a beautiful little yellow crystal that's renowned and has long been referred to as solid sunshine, an abundance attractor, and the merchant stone. So great for bringing in money. And then you bring in bergamot essential oil, which is a beautiful citrus oil that can actually be used throughout the day for helping to calm any kind of anxiety, but also really helpful for getting a good night's sleep as well. What you do is you hold that crystal in your hand and you visualize what abundance you want to manifest in your life. And as you do that, you want to see it, you want to smell it, you want to taste it, you want to almost take yourself to that reality, as that though it's actually real, and send that into the crystal for as long as you can. Now, once you've got this, you get your bergamot essential oil, pop a few drops on your hand, you anoint the crystal on it, and you take a few deep breaths as well. As you do that, oils work on different levels. Now, first of all, we're creating right now what's called an aromatic anchor. An aromatic anchor, we've all had these before.
Yeah.
We've walked into somewhere and we've smelt something that's reminded us of our grandmother's house. or the clone of the ex that we, no longer like, and that type of thing. And we're like, oh, we have these associations with that. So because we're focusing on feeling abundant and we work in a feeling world when it comes to manifestation, you don't just think about it, you feel it. We're connecting that feeling with bergamot. So whenever we have that smell again, we'll take this back there. But bergamot is also what I find to be the best essential oil for self-worth. And what I've found is that the world tends to pay you what you believe you're worth. And so if you can increase your self-worth, that can help with abundance as well. Now, once you've done that, what you need is you need a highest currency note in your country. So in Australia, it's a $100 note. You put a bit of bergamot on that as well. You pop the crystal and the bergamot covered note into your purse. So how they work, the crystal holds energy. Crystals, because they grow in a crystalline structure, they hold a lot more energy than other things. It's holding that vibration around you even when you're not thinking about it. The bergamot's there. When you smell it, you get that kind of connection back to feeling abundant. It keeps on reminding of that, helps with self-worth. And the trick with the $100 note is you're never allowed to spend it. So each time you go into your purse, instead of going, oh, I've got no money, you start going, oh, I always have money. Just start to change your mindset as well. So you're bringing in that kind of attitude and mindset aspect as well. Now, I did this many, many years ago, probably 15 years ago, and I would have to keep on breaking that $100 note because I had emergencies, like I have to have that jacket. But then one day I was like, no, and I'd find that I'd just start running out of money and be like a couple of days till payday. Then when I made that resolution, I'm not going to break it no matter what I noticed is I stopped running out of money. Now, my account balance still goes up and down, but whenever I need to buy something, the money is always there for me to pay for it. And I have taught that. People have changed that slightly and made grids around their home or in their business. They've done the wallet exercise and that type of thing, but they find that combination of the bergamot essential oil and the crystal has been really, really powerful for them. So I'd encourage anyone who hasn't tried it yet, give it a shot and let me know how it goes.
Yeah, it's amazing. I love that. And you covered this with the students in Sacred Beginnings, the program as well. And yeah, they were very excited to go and try that. So now I've got a question for you, because this question came up within the academy. And while we were going through it again, I was like, oh, I need to ask you. So is bergamot the only oil that we can use for manifesting, or can we use different oils that is maybe that we are drawn to? Because I actually went out after we had you on. I went out and I had a look for bergamot oil and I smelt it and I was like, I can't do that. Like there's something about the smell that it's just not for me.
Yeah,
So
got you.
can we
Let me
change
give
the
you
oil?
two answers to that question.
Yeah, please.
First of all, yes, there are other oils. Citrus oils, many of the citrus oils are really good because they have that feeling of happiness and abundance and richness. So things like orange oil can be really great. Mandarin can be really great. Other abundance ones, cumin oil is actually a really great abundance oil as well. So there are other ones that you could use. Even frankincense is a possibility as well. So again, does it have to be a citrine? Does it have to be bergamot? No, they're the classics that I find work really well. But again, use your own personal relationship and choose what you want. Now, to get a bit personal on you, Leonie,
go for it.
one of the things I found, and in one of my oracle decks, Magic of the Essential Oils, in the guidebook, it actually says, well, what happens if we don't like the smell of an essential oil? What does that mean? Sometimes we love it and like we can't get enough of it. That's unbalanced. And sometimes we're like, why on earth would you put that in a bottle? Type of thing. And I looked at that, and basically when it comes to bergamot is very much about, if we don't like the smell of an essential oil, it's very much about there's something we need to work with there and we're avoiding it. Now, if you possibly had a wretched, evil stepmother who used to always refuse lavender and you hate lavender because of a memory, that's a different thing. But if there's no reason why you wouldn't like the smell of a certain oil, then it suggested something for you to look at. A classic example from myself was, I remember geranium. So geranium for me, I knew it was a heart chakra essential oil. I was so excited to smell a real, true, pure geranium essential oil. It arrived in the box. I whipped open that lid and I'm like, oh, why would you put that in a bottle? Now, when you go back through and look at the emotional support that geranium brings, it's very much about trust. And a really great reference guide that I would always kind of refer to first said, if you had a bit of a rough time with your parents, maybe your mum or your dad, you might have trust issues as you grow up. I'm like, well, that doesn't resonate with me. But then I thought, and I'd encourage everyone to think, I want you to think of your first ever love, probably in high school. And I argue that we don't love any stronger than that time. Think about how obsessed we are. They're our sun, our moon. We're writing their name on our pencil case. We used to do those little calculations where you add up the numerology and
Yeah.
work out what percentage they are our soulmate. We're obsessed
Yeah.
with them. And then 3 weeks later, you catch them behind the bike shed, hacking your best friend. And it breaks your heart. And so when you go
Yeah.
into the next relationship, instead of being all in, you just go 95% in. And maybe that one doesn't go too well either. And then the next one's 90. And by the time we get to adulthood, we end up just going, I'll just go 30% in. We'll see how this guy goes or this girl goes.
Mm.
And geranium is about trusting, about opening all flowers, the action of flowers to open. And so it helps us to open up in different ways. And geranium is a really great one at protecting the heart and letting us use the wisdom of the past, but still giving our all, because if you only give half, you're only going to get half back. So I worked with geranium.
Yeah.
How I worked with it is I didn't put it in a diffuser and smell it every day, because that would have just made me hate it more. Putting it on the soles of your feet each night is a really great way of helping to support you. It soaks through the
Yeah.
soles of your feet throughout the night, and you will find over time, me and geranium still aren't the best of friends, but we can definitely hang out. And I use it in my skincare a lot, so I smell it a lot more. So that's an example of how you can work with it, and it can support you in becoming a bit more trusting and opening up in relationships, or self-worth, or a myriad of many other things as well.
Yeah. That's just beautiful, Adam. Like this actually just brings so much awareness to how powerful these tools actually are, right? It is not just the oil, like you said, that you're putting in a diffuser that you're burning. It's not just a smelly thing. There is actual energy behind it. There is ways that to use it to actually find the places where we are stuck, right? Like you were saying, to find the blocks. And this is where awareness comes in. If you have a real sense of awareness, you can notice when you smell that oil and you feel a tinge in your body, or you feel a stiffness, or you pick up a crystal and for the next 2 days you've got an ankle pain, and you can start bringing the connections, you can start filtering through things, and you can find things. I love that. You are so passionate. Like, I'm sitting here and I'm listening to it, and I'm just reminded of the beauty and the power in these tools. So I'm just thank you so much for being on. I'm just loving this so much.
Oh,
I
my
want
pleasure.
to ask you about one oil, because it is oil that I love. If I have to say, my favorite oil, if I was asked, it would be this, and it's Palo Santo. What can you share with the community around Palo Santo as, the plant, the oil, how to use it? And yeah, I know that I'm stringing this on you, but I'm pretty sure that you will have the knowledge on this. So please share a little bit about Palo Santo, because I think it's really powerful for people to know how they can use it. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, the Palo Santo tree is an amazing tree. But this is another thing I'm a big advocate for. You need to be really wary when you're buying essential oils, or even smudge sticks and Palo Santo sticks as well, where they're coming from. Because, like, to give you one statistic off the top of my head, 70% of what's sold as pure or organic lavender essential oil in the world is not from a plant. It's made in a laboratory, because labeling isn't governed anywhere in the world. Now, Palo Santo is one we do need to be really, really wary of, because the tree is fascinating. We get the essential oil from the heartwood, or in the center of the tree, but that oil doesn't form into the tree until the tree dies. So we do have some conservation issues where, because more people are loving either the essential oil, or you can just burn the fragrant wood, people are going and basically pushing over trees, so they die quicker in that type of way.
Yeah. Wow.
But
Yeah.
once you get your hot little hands on one that you feel comfortable with, a company that, yes, this is a reliable source of Palo Santo, but it's just good to ask those questions first. It's an amazing oil. So it's going to have a strong connection around death, because the oil doesn't form until the tree is dying. It's a really beautiful oil for working through all different stages of death. And when I'm talking about death, I'm not just talking about the loss of life, I'm talking about the end
Yeah.
of anything. So it's a
Yeah.
really powerful oil for helping you to let go of different things, for helping you go through grief. And grief again, grief was something that came up a big during the pandemic years because
Oh, yeah.
not that people were necessarily dying, although they were, it was more so to do with like the loss of the chance to go on that holiday that you'd booked, or the loss to go to
Yeah.
that wedding, or grief comes with that type of thing. And Palo Santo is a great one to use to help remove that in that way. It's also a beautiful one in some cultures. People embrace death and they feel comfortable with it, and it's
Mm.
part of life. And for many others, they avoid it and don't know what to do at a funeral, or when their partner they spent 50 years with just dies. And so it's great for bringing up these emotions, feeling comfortable with them, celebrating death in the role that it plays in nature. We can't have life if we don't have death.
Yeah.
And it's just such a potent one for really going into those kind of. There are lots of cleansing oils, and I wouldn't necessarily personally be using Palo Santo all the time. I
Mm.
would use it to when something needs to die, when you're ready to get rid of something. It's really great, for
Mm.
those in the northern hemisphere. As we get to the end of December, the end of the solar year is considered to be on the winter solstice. Really great around that time to go, okay, let's get rid of all the old energy. Or even as you get to the end of a year, get rid of all the old energy, that kind of thing. I would use Palo Santo for that kind of like important times, not just like every day in that way. In Australia, we've got eucalyptus, which is a great everyday cleanser. There's Spanish
Mm.
sage and different sages and things like that, that can be used. Juniper can be great. You use frankincense and so on. But Palo Santo, love it. Any spiritual worker needs it in their collection, but it is a top shelf kind of oil that you would reach for
Mm.
on a special occasion.
Yeah, beautiful. I love that. Thank you for sharing that with us. Now, I'm mindful of time. So what I want to do is I want to ask you, where can people find you, first of all? And then what have you got coming up? Have you got any events? Have you got anything special coming up that you wanted to share with the community?
So where you can find me, I'm a typical Gemini, so I'm everywhere. I'm on Instagram. I have a page on Facebook called Crystal Connections with Adam Barralet. I have 2 podcasts, one about crystals, one about oils that I do with some great friends of mine. They're on YouTube and on Spotify and your normal podcasting things. I have an online college where you can do courses in your own time if you've got some spare time, um, kind of everywhere. And probably the biggest thing I would love everyone to do is to jump to adambarralet.com, my website, and subscribe to my newsletter. So the reason being is I find people will love either crystals or they love essential oils, and they buy all these different ones. And again, they don't know what to do with them. So what I do each week is I send out a newsletter on Sunday when I've got my act together, and it'll tell you what's happening for the next week. So it might be Mercury's going into retrograde, or one of the other planets is retrograding, or it's a full moon, or it's a solstice or something. And I pick the best crystal and the best oil that I believe resonate with that week's energy, the best tools to help you navigate through what's happening in the heavens, gifts from Mother Earth. And I talk
Yeah.
about them, I give you tips on how to use them, I tell you about the astrology of the week. And so if you did that and you just focused on one crystal and one oil a week, by the end of the year, you've really developed relationships with over 50 crystals and 50 oils. So
Yeah.
I really encourage as many people to jump on that as they can. What have I got coming up? I'm kind of, I'm not sure when you're releasing this podcast, but we're about to head into December. I'm probably just going to kind of rest. I've done a lot of travel this year and that type of thing. I'm looking at doing some coaching and helping people launch their spiritual businesses a little bit more, and how to actually make a full-time profit off that. I've got a trilogy of books on oils and astrology that I want to release out. And I do need to get my act into gear and do some more online teaching. So I will be doing that. But if you're
Mm.
subscribed to my newsletter, you'll be the first to know anything exciting that comes out that way, and when my books and all my other exciting things are available too.
Yeah, that's beautiful. It sounds like, finishing off the year, in a bit of a rest state is good, so that we can kind of just kick in and just get started again for next year, because it sounds like there's a lot of beautiful gifts and magic that you still have to share with the world. So I'm really looking forward to that. What we'll do is we'll make sure that the all of your details are in the show notes. This will probably air within the next couple of days, because I just get out there and just do it. I'm like you, just get it out. So I'll make sure that all the details are in the show notes, and so that people can hop on and subscribe to your newsletter, and they can keep in touch. And yeah, Adam, I honestly thank you so much for your time, for your beautiful energy, for the gift that you're bringing to the world. It's been a real honor and pleasure to reconnect with you, and I look forward to see what you're going to create in the new year and where you're going with everything.
Oh, my absolute pleasure. I'm just happy that anyone will let me bang on about the things that I love. So thank you so much for having me on the show.
Yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure. So I am going to make sure that I've got all the show notes for you guys available, and then make sure that you subscribe to Adam's newsletter to stay connected, and having the knowledge and the energy, the beautiful energy that Adam brings, to, to kind of learn and bring awareness to how crystals and essential oils can work for you. I think that's a really good idea. I will probably hop on myself and do that, because it feels like I want to reconnect a little bit with crystals and oils. So there's a reason for you back in my life. I really appreciate that. We're going to leave it there for today's podcast. If you love today's podcast, please remember to rate the show, share it with your friends, go and follow Adam. What is your podcast name, actually, Adam? I forgot to ask you.
So the crystal one is called Crystal Confab, which is with me and 3 other crystal experts from around the world. And if you like essential oils, Fellowship with Essential Oils, it's me and one of the top aromatherapists from the UK. And we're from very different backgrounds, but it's really interesting the conversations we have. So they're both available as video form, as a vodcast and a podcast as well.
That's awesome. So guys, go follow Adam on both those podcasts. I can't remember the names, but I'll make sure that I've got them in the description for you. And yeah, so follow on, and we will catch you guys on the next episode. So have a beautiful day, and sending you guys much love.
Blessed be.
Bye.